2 Kings 17:24 through 41. Devotional focus verse. But the Lord your God ye shall fear, and he shall deliver you out of the hand of all your enemies. 2 Kings 17:39. An inexperienced driver, high speeds, wet roads, and a dash of alcohol. Young children playing with matches. Greasy carnival food and too many rides on the roller coaster. We call these combinations a recipe for disaster because when certain factors are combined, we know problems will result. Disobedience, unbelief, idolatry, the spiritual components present in the land of Israel, were a recipe for disaster. This was not because the people of Israel did not know better. Today's focus verse contains a recipe for success that had been given to them centuries before, and through the years, faithful men of God had reminded them of this precept. The people of Israel were blessed during the righteous reign of King David. However, in the later years of King Solomon, as his heart was turned away from the Lord to other gods, the nation began to be infected by idolatry. Consequently, God divided the nation. 10 tribes formed the northern kingdom under King Jeroboam. Even though the Lord told Jeroboam that he was dividing the kingdom because of Solomon's idolatry, Jeroboam created his own religious system with elements from both Jewish and pagan beliefs. Consequently, this essentially pagan form of worship became the religion of the nation of Israel. There was only a pretense that they were still serving the living God. 200 years and 20 kings later, disobedience, unbelief, and idolatry prevailed in the northern kingdom of Israel. God had sent his prophets Elijah, Elisha, Amos, Hosea, and undoubtedly many others to plead with and warn the people to stay true to Jehovah. Yet, there were false prophets telling the people they must be tolerant, be willing to accept diversity, be ready to adopt new ways. The majority of the people apparently believed these fake prophets because the nation embraced idolatry, and eventually God removed Israel from the promised land as he had said he would if they disobeyed. The recipe for disaster produced ruinous results. Just as the Israelites did, people today also make a choice between a recipe for disaster and one for spiritual success. If we will fear the Lord and obey his word, he has promised to deliver us from the enemy of our souls, to be with us, to help and guide us, and eventually to give us eternal life. We can learn a lesson about what not to do from Israel, and we can purpose to follow God with all our hearts. It's a sure recipe for success. Background information. Today's text describes the resettlement of Israel. When the Assyrians conquered an area, they would force the local inhabitants to relocate in other countries. Then Assyria brought in captives from other areas to live in the newly conquered land. This prevented nationalities from uniting and rebelling, for they were spread apart from each other and far from their homelands. The new inhabitants of Israel were brought from locations to the east and the north. Cutha was near Babylon. Ava, Hamath, and Sepharvaim were probably cities in Syria. Samaria referred to the land of Israel, not just the capital city, see verse 24, and Samaritans were the Israelites who were still there, see verse 29. In time, the families of the Israelites who stayed behind married into the families of those who were brought in, and eventually these racially mixed people were called Samaritans and were hated by the Jews. Repopulating took time, and meanwhile, wild animals increased. When lions killed some of the colonists, they acknowledged it was God's judgment against them. They asked for a priest who understood how to serve the God of the land. One of the priests that had been taken captive was sent back, but he probably was one who had been involved in Israel's idolatry. The people from these various locations combined the worship of God with worship of their own idols, several of which are listed in the text. This resulted in extreme heathen practices that continued until the time of the writing of 2 Kings. Verses 34 through 39 reiterate the commandments God had given the Israelites and reference how he had worked miracles on their behalf. Howbeit they did not hearken, and their ungodly ways were passed down from one generation to another. See verse 40. Conclusion: if we follow God's recipe for success, we will be well pleased with the results.
And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cutha, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria, and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there, that they feared not the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which slew some of them. Wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, The nations which thou hast removed, and placed in the cities of Samaria, know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, Carry thither one of the priests whom ye brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let him teach them the manner of the God of the land. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. Howbeit every nation made gods of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans had made, every nation in their cities wherein they dwelt. And the men of Babylon made Succoth-Benoth, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashimah, and the Avites made Nibhaz and Tartak, and the Sepharvites burnt their children in fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. So they feared the Lord, and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of the high places. They feared the Lord, and served their own gods, after the manner of the nations whom they carried away from thence. Unto this day they do after the former manners. They fear not the Lord, neither do they after their statutes, or after their ordinances, or after the law and commandment which the Lord commanded the children of Jacob, whom he named Israel, with whom the Lord had made a covenant, and charged them, saying, Ye shall not fear other gods, nor bow yourselves to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. But the Lord, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt with great power and a stretched out arm, him shall ye fear, and him shall ye worship, and to him shall ye do sacrifice. And the statutes, and the ordinances, and the law, and the commandment which he wrote for you, ye shall observe to do forevermore, and ye shall not fear other gods. And the covenant that I have made with you ye shall not forget, neither shall ye fear other gods. But the Lord your God ye shall fear, and he shall deliver you out of the hand of all your enemies. Howbeit they did not hearken, but they did after their former manner. So these nations feared the Lord, and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers. So do they unto this day.